Hello, everybody. Special day today. Mike Townsend here with Pamela Bettis-Tanner for the American Cycling Network, and we're going to have a conversation today about the United States Senior Olympics, the women's division, age 50 to 54. I am honored to be talking to Pamela. She won four gold medals. She won all of her events, and wished I could say that, but but that's a whole other story. But Pamela, and you were telling me off camera that there's other events you've won as well, and even in Pittsburgh a couple of years ago, you cleaned house. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Pittsburgh was actually the first time I was eligible to compete in national senior games. And so, I went into it feeling very well trained and I got there. And of course, Carly Antonio was in my age group there. And so, she won the two time trials. And then I felt like, I did well. And I don't ride a time trial bike. So, even at these games, I'm out there racing and so I'm not on a time trial bike. So that will be in my very near future. I'll be ordering one this fall probably. But anyway, went and raced it. Was very pleased. I ended up in the top three overall women actually in Pittsburgh and the time trials. Except no, I was number four. I take that back. I was number four in the 10K time trial. But all the events other than that one, I was top three overall. And Carla, of course, didn't race the road races in Pittsburgh, but then she raced the 20K road race here in, when we just raced in Des Moines. So anyway, came into this one, won two silver, two gold in Pittsburgh. Was so much fun racing. Got to be, really good friends with Carl Antonio and Elizabeth Fox. And so we've messaged and met up and hung out over the last couple of years. And so, it was funny because Carla yesterday just sent a text and it was this funny thing she did on like Chat GPT. And
Mm-hmm.
she had this picture of the three of us and she told them that she was going to be racing when she was in her 90s. And so she wanted to see what that looked like. So she sent us this picture of what we're going to look like in the 90s. And, Mike, I got to tell you, my quads I was very happy with. I'm like, wow, I don't have a lot of atrophy going on there, but I was missing my teeth. And I was like, and,
Oh
and they
man,
all and they all looked great. I don't know if they had dental work done or what, but I was missing quite a few of my teeth, and so
that's
it's
funny.
just yeah, it's just hilarious. But anyway, that's the great thing about racing is you get these friendships, right?
Oh yeah.
And they're competitive, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not catty, and I just
Yeah.
I love that, and it motivates me. And so, I came into Des Moines not feeling as prepared. I had 1,000 less miles under my belt than I
Mm-hmm.
did in Pittsburgh. But yeah, over the last few years, I mean, I won seven national championships in 3 years. I won the USA Triathlon, Duathlon Ultra
Mm-hmm.
National Championship last summer. I competed in the Pan American Masters Games last summer and
Wow.
took second overall in my age group in the time trial and won the overall female for the sprint duathlon. So, you know, I'm uh I'm feeling pretty good, but I got a lot of work to do still. So
Yeah, don't we all? Well, how long have you been riding competitively? How long have you been competing?
well, I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life. I remember like the first like legit trophy I ever got for like actually doing something was in second grade. I won all the field day events. And so the
Mhm.
coach wanted to give me a special trophy at our, end of year awards. And so I was just like, wow. And so like I was hooked, from then on. And so, as the years went by, I mean, I was a basketball player, a volleyball player, softball player. I was district, MVP of all three at some point in high school. But basketball was my love, and we were on two state championships, ranked 25th in the country when I was in high school. Had teammates that played for Pat Summit, and then I had an opportunity to go on and play at the next level. And so, I played JUCO first. We were the first team in history to go to nationals, and they've got a dynasty going there now. And then I was able to play Division I college basketball and coach it. So, as far as the cycling and that kind of stuff, I was like in my probably late 20s, early 30s. I was out doing adventure races and a lot of mountain biking. I started off as a mountain biker first. I was actually a Cat 3 mountain biker when I left off.
Oh wow.
Um, and they deleted all that history because I had a period of time where I didn't have a license, and so when I went back, it was like I think I had to get another license or something. Anyway, it's like I'm at the bottom of the totem pole on all of it now, but we're masters, and so I guess it really doesn't matter. So
Yeah. Yeah.
because
That's
you're
right.
competing against all levels anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. You got to earn it. So I mean, but I've raced just I've raced a lot, but I didn't really get serious about it, I guess, until around 17, 18 time frame, because in 16 I went through breast cancer, and I was very fortunate. It was caught early, and
Right.
but I wanted to commemorate that and promote awareness. I wanted to cycle Natchez Trace, so I ended up
Yeah.
doing that, and then that led to me being one of a handful of cyclists to cycle 1,098 miles in 11 days to honor the legacy of Pat Summit.
Wow.
And I did that 2 years in a row, and we raised a lot of money for the Alzheimer's there at UT Knoxville and Pat
Right.
Summit Foundation. So that's kind of was the spark, I think. So you go through something bad, it leads to something really good. In
Yeah.
20, I was able to qualify as a duo with my buddy Jimmy, who owns a bike shop.
Right.
We qualified for RAM as a duo. We cycled the
Mhm.
entire Natchez Trace in under 24 hours running clock time.
Wow.
And so, that was, I always felt like that was quite an accomplishment.
Now,
So
how old were
you
you
might,
when
it
you had breast cancer?
was 44.
44.
Yeah.
So about 10 years ago.
Yep. Coming up on it. It was, the radiologist is the rock star there. Like they could have easily missed it.
Mhm.
But it was stage 0. So,
Right.
I'm all about hitting things head on. So,
Right.
I mean, I didn't have to go as aggressive as I did, but
Right.
I was like, my joke was take both of them and make them bigger.
Yeah. 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 That's
But
funny.
it's amazing because you realize how quickly the rug can be yanked out from underneath you at any given time, because I was healthy. I mean, I did
Hmm.
bodybuilding competitions, and I was a super clean eater. I was like a not the bodybuilder, but I was the
Right.
like figure competitor.
Right.
And so it's just like I was a physical education teacher. I mean,
Mhm.
I led the lifestyle that I preached. And
Right.
so it just goes to show you, there was actually, my grandmother had breast cancer, but there was no genetic link, as it
Right.
turned out. And so it's just one of those things. And so I think that's why, even more so now that I'm technically, senior, you see these, people out there in their 80s and their 90s, and they're still competing and getting after it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just so inspiring because we all have like things that we have to work through and deal with,
Hmm.
and but they're not letting it slow them down. They're not letting it stop them. And
Right.
back to what Carla said, we're going to be in our 90s still out there getting after it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I love that.
Absolutely. Oh, me too. It certainly extends your life being in shape, doesn't it? Which
Yes.
leads me to the next question. I follow you on Strava. We met, and I wore this shirt for you because we met at this is from the state qualifier last year, and
Oh,
we met there, and since then I followed you on Strava. Now, other than just scrolling through and giving you a thumbs up, I don't really pay attention. Other than I see you running some, see you riding a bike some. I think I've seen a few swims in there over the last year. Tell
no.
everybody, tell everybody about your training. Tell everybody about your training. How
No,
much you
you
train?
you you might have seen two swims, and they
Yeah,
weren't even a quarter of a mile. It's
I
enough
think
for
it
me
was a
to
couple of them.
Yeah, it's enough for me to get in the water and say, "Yep, I still hate swimming, and I'm not going to do it." So that's all that is.
Okay.
You will not see me swimming. But the funny thing on that is I actually had a swimming and diving class in college. I mean, like I took my B and ran with it. We did all these strokes you learn, and with the
Yeah.
final exam, I swim them all on top of the water, either
Right.
that side stroke or backstroke. And I was like, I got my 24 laps in the Olympic pool, and that was for a B. I couldn't even raise my arms up when I was done. I was just like, the lactic acid just I
Yeah.
was like, man, I grew up with a pool, an in-ground pool in my backyard, and I hate to have my face in the water. I'll kayak all day long, but I
Right.
hate to swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my training, run and bike a lot. I do athlon, run, bike, run.
Mhm.
So I raced at the national level on that. Last year, I really have just started to kind of get that whole organization figured out too, as far as like
Hmm.
rankings and how, it all kind of works. But
Right.
I actually finished eighth overall in my age group last year. So I'm real close to All American contention there. Like I said, I've won, the national championship. The funny story on that is like there's girls that can beat me, I mean, no doubt, I mean, that it's you race who shows up, right? So,
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I've set course records on things, like halves and stuff, but I mean, I know it can be broken. It's who shows up, I mean, it was a
That's right.
very good time. We'll say I feel like it was a very good time, but at the same time, I know like there are other girls that if they show up,
Hmm.
they're gonna beat that. So it's just I always take like my training mentality is that I'm not gonna. I know ahead of the race what I'm capable of doing. You know that through your training, right?
Hmm.
So you know roughly what you're running. You know roughly what your cycling times are going to be. And so I have like a best case, worst case scenario. So I set this time like best case. I think that's the time I can reach. And oddly enough, that was literally the time I hit when I like set that record at the one race that I'm talking about for the half. I literally hit that target time, and so then like worst case, I'm like, man, like, just something I blew up on the run or this or that or whatever, I
Hmm.
didn't have my nutrition dialed in like I should. And, so worst case, like this should be the worst. And so then usually I fall somewhere in between there, but then you use it to tweak things from there, and so, I mean, while I do kind of research and know my competition,
Hmm.
at the same time, with what I'm doing now, the race is really against myself and my times and trying to, get better at those. So,
Interesting. What about any secrets to your success that you'd want to share with someone maybe wanting to get in? Let's say there's ladies out there that are 50 years old. They want to get into competitive senior women's cycling. Any secrets you could share with them?
well, oddly enough, I'm probably the only athlete that is fairly competitive that you're going to talk to that I know of that has never been coached in the sport. I've never been
Okay.
coached in running. I've never been coached in cycling. I'm just figuring it out all on my own,
Right.
and so, I see where there are a lot of room for gains for me in certain things, training wise, that I need to be doing.
Right.
And then, time trialing and duathlon, of course, having, a time trial bike, that's going to be huge for me.
Right.
But as far as secrets, I mean, there's really no secret. The
Hmm.
secret is that there's no shortcuts to success. I
Yeah.
train really hard,
Yeah.
and I'm always learning. And I know these other ladies. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm become good friends with Carl Antonio and Elizabeth Fox, and they train really hard. I mean, I always laugh when people will tell me sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, you're just you're just so gifted, or you just have such great genetics." My dad was a boxer. He was third in the country in the Golden Gloves in his weight class, and he was a great runner, and he was like fourth in the state in the mile, and but it's like, so yeah, I have some good genetics, but I always say
Right.
you have to work your genetics because
Oh, yeah.
you
That's
can
true.
have genetics and end up like just a couch potato,
That's
so
right. Most people don't understand the discipline it takes, and I know you're disciplined. As I mentioned, I see you on Strava. Do you think that people assume that you train every time you train, you just want to train? Is there ever times where you're like, oh no, I got to do this, but you know the benefit of it, and you're disciplined enough to just go ahead and bite the bullet and do it?
sure, I mean, and so my husband and I travel full time in a motorhome, right? So I am in an undisclosed location at this point. So good luck in finding me, unless you know.
I think I saw it on Strava from yesterday, but
Right. Don't
yeah,
be telling
but
people
I
all my
won't tell
secrets
anybody.
there. They'll
Yeah.
all be wanting to follow me on Strava. So no, so I have to be very adaptable, because like one thing that would be hard for somebody to actually even take me on to coach me would be that a lot of times they want, specific data, and then that usually involves riding a specific course because if you're riding something in Tennessee, Mike, and then whether it's a 5K course or a
Mhm.
20K or whatever you're doing, that's going to look different than if you're doing it somewhere else,
Yeah.
with the elevation profile. I mean, so and then too with me with our travel, like something might happen, and I had this plan, but I laugh sometimes because I follow some things that I get kind of training tips from and stuff like that, and these groups, and they got coaches and this and that, and but it's like they have to like literally like they can't make a change without like hold on. They can't make a change without consulting the coach. It's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I have to. And I'm like, well, man, I'm just going to make the change. Like I'm just going to switch this. Like this is
Yeah.
on Tuesday, and I'm going to switch it with Thursday, or
Yeah.
and then I make these little changes, and then I also listen to my body. And
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to tweak something based on how I'm feeling because I still don't operate off of power meter. I don't have a power meter, so that's something
Hmm.
that can improve my training. I operate
Absolutely.
off of heart rate,
Yeah.
but then that's not always accurate because,
Yeah.
like at the 5K time trial, it was like, I mean, I think it said I was in like zone 2 at the end of it, and I said like no, like my heart about exploded. Like I was definitely in zone 4, and I don't have a strap, so again, that's encouraging for me because I know where there are a lot of places that I can make gains.
Yeah. Yeah. You would definitely. I mean, I know it sounds crazy because you swept the medals, and we'll talk about the 20K and the 40K in just a second. But I know how it's helped me with a coach. Just found out that I was overtraining. I mean, my body stayed in a fatigue mode most of the time, and you may be better at listening to your body than most. But talking about the 20 and the 40K, uh, tell us how hard it was. Anything you want to share about your margin of victory? Was it a sprint finish? You know, what was it like? Because I mean, that's a pretty big deal. Because I raced in the 20K, and these guys were crazy. I mean, they were all over the
Well,
place. Nobody
let's
was holding
go.
their line. I mean, it was crazy. Was yours like that?
We'll talk about it in just a second. Let me just backtrack to what you just said there a second ago.
Okay.
As far as the fatigue and all
Yeah.
that, like I pay attention to a lot of the analytics that I get off of my Garmin and my Strava and stuff, and so I know a lot of the terminology and stuff, right? So I mean, I
Yeah.
have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology and health, and I have a master's degree in sports administration, and so
Okay.
that's been my career, my
Right.
whole life. So
Yeah.
and I have a good understanding of nutrition and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. And I'm always learning. So, that is why, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't benefit from a coach, but I'm just saying I have a lot of people, mentors in the field that, I can go to that, give me advice and help me in this and that. So, you know, I do pretty well considering all things, I
Yeah.
think,
That's
but
good. Oh,
anyway,
absolutely. I mean, you can't argue with the results.
well, so getting to the races. All right. So you're asking what about the 20K first?
Yeah, so I wanted to find out if the women's was as crazy as the men's because I mean a friend of mine that I met there and he's become friends. I like what you said about relationships because there's about four guys that I'll be friends with probably till the day I die that I met in Des Moines,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, it's so cool the whole community. And Tim was talking. He wasn't our age group, and he beat me by several minutes, but it was he just had to yell at people to hold their line. Guys were just all over the place, and I had to be careful because of my collarbone has a piece of titanium in it, and I was 10 weeks after the surgery when I was competing, and so there was, my PT, my physical therapist, just said, "Whatever you do, just don't crash." She said,
That's
"You'll be."
always a good rule.
Oh yeah, yeah. She said you'll be fine as long as you don't crash and land on that shoulder, and because there was a lot of new bone growth and everything. I don't know that I'll ever ride in another one again because people I mean, for a hunk of metal, they are all over the place racing like NASCAR. I mean, they're just like everywhere.
Well,
So,
okay, so
so is that how the
the
women's?
no, not this time. No, in
Because y'all are
Pittsburgh,
nice.
well, no, we're not. In Pittsburgh, it was crazy. Okay, so in
Okay.
Pittsburgh, we had a 20K course, and then this on the 40K day, it was two loops of the 20K course. Okay,
Mhm.
and so look, it was Elizabeth Fox, me. There was another girl from Virginia that wasn't in Des Moines. She didn't come this time, but it was her teammate. And so largely it was the three of us, and then there was another girl both days, and I don't remember their names. I remember one of the names because she came up to me in Des Moines, and she didn't race this year. But there were two other girls that just kind of hung on the back. But we had a plan, and we went out,
Mhm.
and so the first day. It was beautiful and it all worked out great. And then the second day, we're actually packing a faster pace than we were on the 20K day in Pittsburgh. And
Mhm.
then after the end of the first 20K loop, we get entangled with the group of men that went off 10 minutes ahead of us. And so now there's like 50 men strung out, and it's that mass chaos that you just described. And we fell in, and then we went to the front, and then we tried to drop, but we're not dropping 50 guys. And so we're just, at this point, we're just like, man, okay, well, I guess we're just going to cruise. And so we just sat in and we cruised until we got around. There was about maybe 2 miles left. There was a hill, and then we attacked that hill and dropped the guys. And then there were some crashes, and then we got up and made a turn, and then there were some more crashes, and then we got to the finish. And that was dicey, and I was yelling at people because they were across the center line.
Yeah.
They were, I mean, they were spread out 10 across
Oh
probably,
yeah.
and you did not want to be in the middle. It was not
Right.
like that in Des Moines. Des Moines was much, and I think they didn't send us off quite the way they did, in Pittsburgh. So I don't know. It was, because we ended up going off with like the older group of men,
Hmm.
and all the other groups were already ahead of us. So I don't know, um, for the 20K in Des Moines, you knew everybody, if they were smart, knew
Hmm.
that Carla, was going to try to go off the front, and Elizabeth, because I mean, they were the two strongest ones on all the other races. And you
Hmm.
know, I talked, with Elizabeth, and I said, well, I mean, I'm gonna try to hang on, to you guys, if I can.
Hmm.
That would be great for me. But I wasn't sure that I, would be able to. And as it turned out, on that first hill climb, I was 8 seconds off of their wheel, and I, just was like, oh, I got to get. And Elizabeth's kind of like, come on, And then I think at a certain point, Elizabeth had to make a determination whether she was going to go with Carla, because Carla, she's a time trialist, she's going, and Carla could have rode that whole course by herself, no doubt. And so, but it's always better when you're working together, right? And
Right.
so, Elizabeth, and I don't blame anyone. It's like you have to be able to do your part and keep on, hold
Yeah.
on. So, I ended up getting dropped right there, and I knew at that point that, I was going to get caught. And so then the group comes up behind me. It was a group of like five ladies. And so then now I fall in with them. And so, we end up working together. And so, and I absolutely did my fair share of the pulls on that. And so, we get to the end, and it was so funny because the day before, I had gone out and pre-rode the course with Elizabeth Fox and her coach,
Hmm.
Mark Holt. And Mark actually ended up winning the 40K, and I think he took second in the 20K.
Hmm.
But Mark, I picked up some pointers from him. And when we were coming down through there, he told me a little something about, like when you're going to the finish. And so I was actually able to utilize that on the 20K day. I remember what he said. And
Hmm.
so, you know, we're headed to the finish, and I'm on this girl's wheel, and then I pop out where I feel like, I can hold a solid sprint. And I would say it was a pretty decent distance of a sprint.
Yeah.
And I took off, and heard one girl say, she's going, and so then, everybody ensues trying to, get there. And I end up taking third by 2/10 of a second.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
so 1/3 in the 20K by 2/10 of a second. Now in my age group, I had already dropped the field there. And so I think the next girl in my age group, she was like 3 minutes and 12 seconds, I think, behind me.
Okay.
So it's always nice when you can drop your competition,
Yeah.
early. Yeah. So, but when I'm racing, I'm not just racing my age group. We all want to be in that top overall,
Right.
and that's the
Right.
competitor, it's
Oh
being a
yeah.
competitor.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're definitely competitive. Yeah. Because I think you were in the state. I think when we qualified, you were second place overall, weren't you? Or
With the men,
yeah.
no, I actually, so in the state, of course, I won the women's in the 20K
Right.
road race, and I actually had the course record for the state. But I ended up this time seventh overall, and there was only 3 seconds that
Okay.
separated me from the first place male. So we all
Okay.
came in. You were in that group. Just
Yeah.
we
Oh
came
yeah.
in.
It was insane.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
insane.
and
It was
so
it was confusion the way they had the results trailer set up right there at the finish line.
yeah.
They needed to move it over to the parking lot, didn't they?
Yeah, but Gabe does a really good job, with that
Oh, I
event. So
know.
I
Yeah,
know
look.
Gabe, and yeah.
Yes. Yes, Gabe and Martin do a very good job with any ride they organize. Well, one more question because we're running kind of short on time. I want to try to keep it around
Oh
30
well, I want to
minutes.
tell you about the 40K. I went off the front with
Oh,
Elizabeth on the
yeah.
40K,
Okay.
and it was funny because there was a girl, and like we started following each other on Strava, and I'm going back and looking, and she was like, "I beat Pamela in the 10K, right?" Because I
Yeah.
10K wasn't my greatest. I mean, I still won, but like I
Yeah.
overall wasn't as great. But she
Right.
was, but then she was like Elizabeth and Pamela attacked on a hill sprint, and or on a hill, and dropped the field, and so Elizabeth and I worked together on that, and I actually ended up finishing second overall for the 40K, which
Oh,
was
that's
was really
good.
great.
So,
Yeah, it was a great way to end.
yeah, so these ladies are an age group above you then.
Well, Elizabeth is actually two age groups. She's a 60 to 64,
Oh,
so
wow.
that,
Okay.
yeah, we, like I said, she's,
I have found in the men, the 60 to 64 is a strong group because
it is.
I still have a day job. Those guys don't have a day job. But
um,
other than cycling, what's most important to you?
Other than cycling, what's most important to me is, faith, relationships, and health. Um,
Yeah, that's good.
so I think, you know, yeah, I mean, your health is so critical, I mean,
Right.
it's what it keeps us being able to be active and
Hmm.
and going, so it's quality of life. So,
That's good. And one more question, unscripted. You have a hat sitting back there. I know what the hat is that you're wearing. Bring your head down so everybody can see that hat that
oh,
you're
this
wearing.
hat.
Yes. There we go. Tennessee Vols, everybody, just so you know. But tell them just a little bit right here at the end about the hat that you've got sitting there because you wore that on the podium, didn't you?
I did. There's this whole controversy out there of, I guess, biologically born men in women's sports. And so, not to get into the specifics of it all, but we learned that we had that situation at National Senior Games, and I think we're not. I know a lot of women that are opposed to it. I'll say that, and the hat came about actually because my friend Carly Antonio had this hat, and so I wanted to borrow it because it's kind of my silent protest, right? And
Yeah.
so and she was all for it, and so we're not trying to be mean or ugly, but I mean, I did my master's thesis project on Title IX, and I
Yes.
already told you my degree is in, and
Yeah.
so I mean, I just I firmly believe that there's an advantage there, and nobody is asking for them not to have their own space. I just don't believe that that space is with biologically born females. So that's there's there's a lot more that we could dive into there,
Oh
but
yeah.
I mean, basically, I mean, I have friends, of that have alternative lifestyles, and all kinds of different things. And I mean, what people do in their personal lives is their business. I don't have any ill
Right.
will or anything against
Exactly.
people, but it's just it's almost a sense of unfairness to women, that are
Hmm.
biologically born women, because while we can beat a lot of men.
Hmm.
It's just, I just feel like there's, training advantages that they have,
Right.
and they'll never understand, you know, experience female
Hmm.
issues,
Right.
so
Yep.
I mean, I know they have their own issues,
Right. Sure.
but
We all
and
do.
yeah, so that's it's a very delicate topic,
Yeah.
and I'll always, I said I'll always try to be kind,
Right.
and I'm not mean spirited, that.
Sure.
Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Good person. You're a good person. Hey, one more
Well,
question.
I got a quote. I like to say this.
All right.
I really love this, and it's so applicable. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up and it knows it must outrun the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning in Africa, a lion wakes up and it knows it must run faster than the slowest gazelle or it will starve. It doesn't matter whether you're the lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you'd better be running.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Hey, well, are you going to be defending in Tulsa?
Absolutely. But I got my work
Okay.
cut out for me there because, I'm going to be up in Carla Antonio's group now. So,
Okay.
I'm I'm chasing her and there's people chasing me and, so
Yeah.
that'll be a tough one for sure. So,
Okay.
I've definitely got a lot of work to do to, even come close to
Yeah.
that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I may be there with my time trial bike. I don't think I'll do the time trial without a time trial bike because it costs us some time.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
you'll be even faster. So that's good. Well,
If I can make a few gains, just a little
yeah.
bit, that's
Well,
it's worth
I
it.
appreciate you. Maybe we'll have you on again, but I appreciate your time today. I know you're busy lady. So, everybody, if you like the video, please share it, subscribe. Uh, Pamela is a great person to know. She's a blessing. So, thank you so much,
Well, I
Pamela.
appreciate you, Mike, and good luck with your American Cycling Network.
Yeah,
And
we're gonna build
yeah.
it. I've got time, so we'll build it over the next 4 or 5 years, and we'll never be as big as GCN, but we'll be bigger. I'll just say that as we, and we'll get more advanced as we go. Once we get monetized, we'll be a little bit more like GCN, but I want to keep that southern lore about it. So
Make sure you keep your teeth.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, you got to send me that picture. I want to see that picture of you at 93 from AI. Thank you so much.
All right.
You have a blessed day.